strongest characters in the Shibuya arc. Let's go. I actually have never seen anybody really do this despite how popular JJK is and how many YouTubers cover it. Maybe that's because it's obvious, but I don't really see it that way. So today, we will be ranking every character that was featured in the Shibuya arc. And I say we because I have two honored guests. Those two being Restless Gambler and Diego's Blood Spray. Before we start, let me go over some rules. If you want to skip to a specific character or tier, the video is timestamped. Rule 1. While we will only be talking about the characters as they were during the Shibuya incident, that does not mean we won't be pulling feats or concepts that happened later on in the series. 2. You may be wondering why I'm saying grade H or G rather than just saying 1 or 2. First of all, the grade system in JJK barely works that well and it's not supposed to. Second, I don't want comments talking about, Nobara is a special grade, but you ranked her below Gojo, who's stated to be a grade 1. Like, obviously, I don't want to hear that shit. 3, Jujutsu Kaisen's power system is extremely complicated. So generally, if two characters are in the same tier, they could probably go even with each other. Or a person with a specific power might be able to defeat someone 2 tiers ahead of them. It's really fair game. With that out of the way though, let's get into the lowest of the low.
Starting out with grade K, this tier is basically just all the featless characters or just the super weak ones. The managers, Ogumi, Nita, and Shoko. Beginning with the managers is pretty obvious. Managers are basically just regular humans with above average levels of curse energy. That's it. Granny Ogumi could be above them due to her history as an assassin, but besides that, she's got nothing to work with. The only thing she does is summon Toji. Nita, the Kyoto first year that no one remembers, is a similar case. The only thing he does is heal Yuji, and said curse technique isn't even good for combat. Shoko also never fights anybody and constantly needs to be protected in every arc. She did go on missions with Geto and Gojo back in the day, however her role in these missions is never specified. She is above the last 3 due to her experience in her reverse curse technique, though this most likely won't help her against characters who can actually fight, like the ones in the next grade.
In grade J are just the generally weak sorcerers, the twins, Geto's followers, Miwa, and Mai. None of the people in this tier have any particularly good curse techniques or combat feats. Mimiko and Nanako have some random power that allows them to revive themselves, plus they are shown to kill multiple managers in JJK 0, but that's it. We don't really know much about Negi and Monami besides them being followers of Geto / participating in the Demon Parade. However, it is understood that they don't stand a chance against characters like Kusakabe, as he was going to throw the fight against them just so that he didn't have to face any special grade. This means he considered them weak enough to beat easily, but strong enough to make the fight look believable. Miwa and Mai are above the others because they have actual showings, though for the most part they're interchangeable. During the Goodwill event, both are described as grade 3, but Mai uses actual guns, putting the fight in her favor. Miwa was able to blitz behind Kenjaku, however, you can argue he had already sensed her and didn't care. This could be why he blocked her strongest sword swing with one hand instead of dodging. So yeah, it doesn't look good for her or any of the characters in this tier.
Grade I contains Momo and the grandson. Momo is said to be between a semi-grade 2 and a regular grade 2. In her only fight against Nobara, who was a grade 3, he was holding back due to the threat of Inumaki, so her stance as a grade 2 is somewhat valid. Regardless, Mekumaru deemed the Kyoto students, even Urahime, to be too weak to be in Shibuya, which doesn't look good for Momo. The grandson, on the other hand, doesn't have much to talk about. The main thing he did was get beat up by a person who is a tier above this, but he is shown to have great physical endurance. Even with a chunk of his arm taken, he wasn't pressed about it, and later on we see him continue to put his body on the line to protect Ogami, his grandmother. Compare this to Momo or anyone below who doesn't have that same mentality. Although in contrast to that, you could say, if the grandson really could fight with Ino, then why didn't he just do it instead of sacrificing his body?
Grade H is most of the semi-first grades, and at the bottom we've got Kogai. The Grasshopper curse was described as a semi-grade 1, and while curses are usually weaker than the sorcerers with the same grade, it still did give Yuji a bit of a difficult time. Yuji at this point was said to be grade 1 by multiple people, so even though Kogai got clapped, it's still somewhat impressive. Next is Niji Ebina, the random curse user that may be fatherized. Despite him not doing anything, Yuji did say he was stronger than Kogai. Now after Niji is Nobara. Oh god, here comes the hate. Nobara does not do anything in Shibuya besides lose and glaze the actual grade 1 sorcerers, which shows she's not on their level. Now, she did battle 2 special grades in the previous arc, but it was a special grade curse, which doesn't mean much, especially when she almost killed herself to do so. Nobara's main fight against Mahito isn't that great either. She did put up a good fight, but the clone that she fought got one tap by Yuji. You can cope all you want, but Nobara for sure does not surpass the next character, Haruta. This sad excuse for a human being defeated her, and while it was only due to his curse technique, we see actual strong characters like Nanami easily bypass this. Haruta also survived full power punches from Nanami. Again, it was only due to his curse technique, but it is still a feat. Awasaka is next on the list as his curse technique might be too complicated for any character below him to figure it out. After all, his whole strategy is to lure people in and kill them when they are vulnerable. Awasaka can also take hits from Yuji, who is on par with Nanami in striking power, so no one up to this point should be a threat. Utahime is next and above him because I believe she has the wisdom and IQ to figure out his strategy. She's a semi-grade 1 sorcerer, however, again, Mechamaru deemed her too weak to be in Shibuya, even though Utahime is an actual teacher with years of experience. To be fair though, she and Kusakabe were fast enough to save Miwa from Kenjaku when they weren't even in sight before. Ino being above her may be controversial, however, he actually possesses a technique that is made for combat. At the start of the arc, he is said to be a grade 2 being assessed for promotion to grade 1. Despite him only having 4 abilities, Ino is kind of versatile. His strongest power, Ryu, did get one shot by Sukuna, but it still immobilized him for a second. Although that was after a month of training, I don't doubt he could do the same to everyone else in this tier. Next is Inomiki, who has the edge over Ino with Cursed Speech. Inomaki could probably one shot anybody in this grade if he tries hard enough, besides the person above him being Kamo. Kamo knows how to counter Cursed Speech, in which case Inomaki is cooked. You could also argue Ino or Utahime know how to counter it as well, but there's no evidence for that, especially in the case of Ino.
Now on to grade G, where we actually get characters that are significant. Principal Yaga was already a veteran grade 1 sorcerer even when Gojo and Geto were in school. While he doesn't do much outside of the whole cursed corpses thing, he did fight Gakuganji and another sorcerer in a 2v1. He lost, yet Yaga actually fought with no cursed corpses and broke Ganji's guitar, showing that it wasn't a no diff. He's really only at the bottom because of a lack of combat feats, a category that Maki beats him in because she has a lot to talk about. Even without Playful Cloud, Mei and Gojo think she should be a grade 2. This assessment was also based off her performance against Miwa, who she no-diffed. With PC though, she can do minor damage to Hanami, one of the most durable fighters in the series. It's consistent with her performance against Dagon. Dagon isn't as durable as Hanami, but Maki can still smack it away and take hits from it all the same. Laurei, yes, that Laurei, is next on this tier due to his showings against Sukuna. As with the rest of the anti-Sukuna squad, Laurei and Miguel could have trained for a month in preparation, however it is kinda implied that they came in fresh. If that isn't the case, being able to survive a Black Flash and hold on to Sukuna even in a stronger form is still impressive. Also, keep in mind, everyone in Shinjuku that actually fought is at least grade 1. If you think Laurei was always this strong with no training, then he might be at the top of this tier, but for now, I don't see it. Nanami is in overtime for all of Shibuya, and his ratio technique, along with a possible Black Flash, could put him above Maki. This is supported by the fact of Dagon calling Maki the weakest out of Team Zenin, and yes, she didn't have Playful Cloud, however, Dagon didn't even use his CT on her either. 70% of Death Swarm went to Naobito, 30% went to Nanami, whereas Maki is left untouched. I think this shows how much of a non-factor Maki is in comparison to Nanami. Choso, despite his lack of experience, would most likely defeat Nanami. Not only is the death painting more versatile, but he can also poison humans if they mix blood. Yuji survived this condition due to Sukuna's resistance to poisons, but nobody else would have that. There's no evidence for Nanami being faster than Choso either, as Yuji has most likely surpassed him in physical stats, and even he lost. Panda is a surprise pick for this tier, and it's mainly due to his sister core. He is a grade grade 2 sorcerer, however, that's probably only his main body, as the Gorilla Core was able to mid-diff a semi-grade 1. Choso also can't poison him, and the blood defense he used against Yuji wouldn't work, as the Gorilla has durability negation. Panda is honestly just a counter to Choso, yet even if you don't think the Gorilla Core has the speed to match, he still possesses the sister core. We don't really know anything about this because it got fodderized by Kashimo. However, Panda was willing to engage Kenjaku with it, though it's not so powerful to where he thinks he can solo Kenny, as he had the backup of Yuji and Kamo. I believe the smallpox deity probably beats everyone before it simply due to domain hacks, with Mei Mei and Kusakabe not being affected by this. Now, Mei did imply she could beat SPD without using simple domain. If that's the case, then you can make the argument for the curse being at the bottom of this tier. And yes, I'm counting Oi Oi in Mei's moveset, as I don't see any point in not including him. Both Kusakabe and Mei's weapons should allow them to avoid blood attacks from Choso, plus their knowledge of cursed corpses, they'd have an easier time defeating Panda. Of course, Mei and Nanami consider Kusakabe to be the strongest grade 1, but that whole sequence is very much up for interpretation. In fact, I'd say this whole tier is, because honestly, I'd consider Maki and SPD to be the weakest of this level, but that's not because they're ass. It's more of just a fact of them not having as many arguments to be at the top as the others. However, it is a fact that none of the characters in this grade have anywhere near as much potential as the next.
Grade F is fairly small, consisting of Mechamaru, Megami, Todo, Yuji, and Naobito. However, there is still quite a bit to talk about here. Mechamaru, or more accurately, Hokichi Muda, was said to have energy output on the level of a special grade. Though Ultimate Mechamaru's attacks would most likely overwhelm anyone in the tier below, Mahito consistently demonstrates capability to outspeed him and destroys his armor with ease. Keep in mind, late Shibuya Yuji easily blocks similar if not stronger attacks, and on top of all this, Mahito himself states that the fight wasn't even close. Megami was stated to be a grade 2 sorcerer at the start of the arc, being assessed for promotion to grade 1, though his main showings come in the midst of the event. After exercising Dagon, it's said that Toji's fangs were bared towards the strongest. Right as this statement is made, we get 4 panels of Team Zenin, with all of them being fatigued in some sort of way. Megami specifically already used his most powerful Shikigami in a battle before, as well as had a domain clash with a disaster curse. Keep in mind, characters who have mastered their domain can only use it once a day, and Megami isn't even on that level yet. Despite this, Toji still considered him to be the strongest of Team Zenin, which is backed up by his feats afterwards. Consider this. Toji is faster than Naobito, who is faster than Jogo. Jogo then easily blitzed the rest of Team Zenin, whereas Megami goes on to evade Toji multiple times. I know we're playing into the whole, oh, Megami survived by running away, he has so much potential, but that's unironically kinda how it is. Surviving an opponent that could probably solo all 4 of the disaster curses speaks to not only Megami's physical ability, but also his versatility and intelligence to wield it. Again, this is all in a weakened state, so what if a fresh Megami fought someone more so even with him, like say Nanami, Choso, or Mei Mei? It really is an interesting thought. Versus Ultimate Mechamaru, however, is a different matter. I mainly put Megami above Mechamaru due to stats, but if you think the robot can outmaneuver Megami like he did Mahito, then he probably wins. Todo and Yuji are a similar case, as they are able to battle a more powerful version of Mahito. Todo's technique and physical feats speak for themselves, however, Yuji has surpassed this. Not only was he already considered on par with a grade 1 at the beginning of the arc, but Todo later complains about how strong Yuji has become, leading him to catch up with a Black Flash. Although Todo entered the fight at 100%, whereas our main character was left at only about 10. Then towards the end of the fight, Mahito states they still have a lot left in the tank, whereas Todo was down at this point. With all these feats in mind though, I still don't believe Yuji could best a character such as Naobito at this point, the head of the Zenin clan who had become known as the second fastest sorcerer, to which neither Yuji or Mahito have any feats to say they are past this. Of course, speed isn't everything, as we will see in later tiers, though Naoya was able to blitz post-Shibuya Yuji and Choso without even using his full speed. Add on to the fact of him almost killing Awakened Maki, who is more powerful than that Yuji.
Grade E is extremely simple. Hanami and Dagon are just 2 disaster curse spears that have domains. If they fought any character before this in a one-on-one, they would win by default. Even without this, their curse energy levels are far greater than any character so far, plus a busted curse technique for both curses. Hanami most likely takes Dagon in a fight due to his versatility and greater durability. Besides that though, there is nothing else to speak on. Even if you say Naobito or Yuji are fast or powerful enough to do something to these two, domain expansion just finishes them.
Grade D is the next level of the disasters, and while there's only 2 people here, it is very contentious. Jogo versus Mahito is insane and can honestly have its own video, but I'll try to cover it in a short way here. To begin, the disaster curses were all meant to have different strengths. Hanami is the most durable, Dagon has the most health, Jogo has the best AP and speed, then Mahito possesses the greatest potential. Jogo himself admitted this fact as Mahito was made the leader of the disasters despite Jogo being the strongest. The idea is also proved throughout the narrative. Mahito goes from about grade 1-ish to easily beating grade 1 sorcerers like Todo or Mekamaru. Comparing the two stats wise is kinda tough, as there aren't many characters for reference. The whole mental block for convincing people Mahito beats Jogo is the speed thing. However, I believe Megumi is a good measuring stick. Fushiguro is able to survive an encounter with a character who is far faster than Jogo. Yuji should be quicker than Megumi, then Mahito is greater than Yuji. The forms of Itadori and Mahito we're talking about are weakened versions of them as well. The curse also has more endurance and durability than Jogo, especially in his instant spirit form. A 40% Mahito survived 3 black flashes from Yuji and Todo, on top of all the other beatings he got from them. Compare this to Hanami, who was pressed off of a similar battle with weaker versions of the duo. Then Gege himself stated Jogo would not survive the same beating Hanami received if he were to be hit. So now you can see, despite Jogo being an absolute demon, Mahito should be in the same realm as him. The real question arises when it comes to Mahito's potential. Of course he was going to surpass Jogo eventually, but did that happen? The curse has his own outlook on this, as ISB is stated to be the true form of his soul, the culmination of everything he has done up to this point. However, he then states that killing Yuji will allow him to be truly reborn, implying that he still has a ways to go. So the question goes, is Instant Spirit Mahito the version that was said to be the strongest of disaster curses, or did he miss out on that opportunity by losing to Yuji? That is something I honestly can't answer, so I'll leave it up to the comments. Before I move on though, Jogo probably shouldn't even damage Mahito due to him not being able to hit the soul, though he could also disintegrate him or use maximum meteor. How Mahito would come back from that, I don't know, but again, I'll leave it to y'all.
Grade C is an oddity as it is a rock, paper, scissors dynamic. The 4 characters in this tier goes as follows: Yuta, Yuki, Urame, and Edo Toji. Again, this isn't a bottom to top ranking as it is a circular dynamic between the 4. Just going based on stats, Urame is definitely the weakest of this tier, but shouldn't be far off from the rest. Excluding hacks, Urame is relatively above Shinjuku Hikari in speed, with this same Hikari being relative to Maki. Maki is equal to Toji, meaning he shouldn't be blitzing Urame by any means. This leaves potential for the sorcerer to land an ice attack on Toji, in which he may not be able to recover from. Yuki and Yuta differ in this aspect though. With reverse curse technique, they could easily withstand any damage ice formation does to them, alongside the fact that they have a domain, which Urame has no provable counter to. Now here's where the rock paper scissors aspect comes in, because despite Urame having a good win con against Toji, Toji would most likely beat Yuta in a fight, because despite Naobito's title being based on a general consensus and not necessarily a fact, it most likely still includes characters such as Yuta or Yuki, as they are known figures in the Jujutsu world. But in regards to fighters such as Urame or Kenjaku, the same wouldn't apply. Toji is undoubtedly above all this though, as the Zenin clan could have been wiped out by him at any time, a reality that all members acknowledge is true. Toji is also immune to domains with a resistance to cursed techniques due to him being considered an inanimate object with no cursed energy. As said before though, speed isn't everything. However, the extent of the gap between Toji and Yuta is unknown. Okotsu considers timeskip Yuji to be fast, but whereas Naoya Zenin can easily blitz him. Yes, Yuta probably wasn't moving at top speeds, but Naoya wasn't either. This is backed up by Maki matching 15-finger Sukuna and being a threat to him. Ultimately, in a battle of sheer physicality, where domains and techniques are off the table, Toji most likely wins. Yuta or Yuki could potentially make up for the gap in speed by creating various strategies with their abilities, but again, this is unlikely considering Toji's resistance to curse techniques.
Grade B is another small one consisting of only 2 fighters, Mahoraga and Kenjaku. This tier's existence is based on Yuta's relation to the two. With Yuta versus Mahoraga, it all comes down to whether or not Yuta has the attack power to delete the Shikigami in one blow. Most of the sorcerer's curse techniques, even the ones he had in Shinjuku, would not be able to do this. This would most likely lead to Rika firing a cursed energy blast just like she did to Geto, but whether or not that will work is up for debate. That was all also assuming that Yuta knows how to beat Mahoraga in the first place. Though Kenjaku differs in these aspects, not only does he know what Mahoraga is, but he can most likely use gravity powers along with Maximum Uzumaki to destroy it in a few hits. Alternatively, he can just use his domain expansion. Speaking of domains, Yuta, Yuki, and any of the characters before this would not have an answer to Kenjaku's domain because his is borderless. As we know, borderless domains crush regular ones from the outside. At best, Kenjaku's range may not be outside of Yuta's barrier, but since he's said to be a master of domains, what's to say he can't just expand this range? Then, if the fight really comes down to a physical bout, maybe Yuta could win. There's not a lot of evidence for this, especially since Kenjaku was equal to Gojo in hand-to-hand combat, and the anti-Sukuna squad basically admits that they can't beat him by regular means. So yeah, despite these two not seeming too powerful, Mahoraga and Kenjaku are certainly some of the strongest beings in JJK.
Grade A, Gojo vs Sukuna. And don't worry, this fight is a lot closer than it was in the manga. During Shibuya, the King of Curses was only at 75% power due to Yuji eating 15 out of the 20 fingers. It's somewhat easy to say Gojo could outlast Sukuna because Yuji would eventually take his body back, but that's boring. I also don't think Gojo would want to win that way. So in a full-on fight, can 15 finger Sukuna defeat the strongest sorcerer? Here we go. Okay, so right off the bat, the fight would progress just how it did in Shinjuku. Both opponents would swap hands for a moment before then opening domains. Now y'all see what the issue is. Just like in the original fight, Sukuna's borderless domain would crush Gojo's. However, unlike the original, Satoru has no way to fully counter this. During that battle, he made his domain sturdy on the outside by making the barrier extremely dense to the size of a basketball. He learned how to perform this after his experience in the prison realm, which was after Shibuya. So Gojo before his entrapment would have no way to protect his barrier from Malevolent Shrine. Maybe you could say he would expand his barrier to the size of Sukuna's effective range. However, Gojo has never shown this before or after he was imprisoned. So Gojo can't domain clash with Sukuna. What options are left? Of course, in the original fight, he spammed RCT to heal himself, which did keep him alive even against the onslaught of slashes. Simple Domain allows for a quick but short time invincibility. Falling Blossom Emotion mitigates the effectiveness of Sukuna's slashes, but doesn't fully stop them from damaging him. All of these techniques are options Gojo has. There is another strategy where Gojo just uses his instantaneous movement to get out of the domain, but then Sukuna would just track him down and reset the situation. I think that this fight ultimately comes down to who can last the longest. There's something I want y'all to keep in mind. In their battle, Gojo was never pressed about running out of cursed energy, not even after he used purple a second time. The only reason Sukuna won was due to Satoru believing the fight was over. He had no idea Mahoraga would come up with an adaptation that Sukuna could replicate to bypass infinity. That isn't an option here though. The King of Curses has to keep domain active the entire time, use domain amplification to physically hit Gojo, plus use reverse curse technique when he takes an attack. Satoru on the other hand has to constantly keep up an anti-domain technique, blast RCT to the max when needed, then use his regular techniques on top of that. Ultimately, I think Gojo is the one fighting an uphill battle, but there is potential for him to activate Hollow Purple, in which case the fight just ends. After all, Red was able to stay intact even while being used inside of Malevolent Shrine, so there is a glimmer of hope there. I don't have an outro for this video, so I just want to say thank you to my two collaborators for coming on, and I love y'all. Thank you for 22K. Bye!